If you've ever questioned why life seems to follow patterns that repeat no matter how much effort you put in, patterns of loss, fear, and limitation, it's worth examining the idea that this repetition is not natural, but intentional. Reincarnation has long been described as a process through which the soul evolves by returning to Earth in different forms. But this explanation ignores a critical detail. The conditions of each return are almost always the same. You are born without memory, placed into a system that rewards obedience, and taught that struggle is the path to growth, yet no clear endpoint is ever reached. This suggests that reincarnation may not be a spiritual journey upward, but a closed circuit built to keep the soul engaged without ever allowing it to leave. Behind every idea of the soul returning again and again, wrapped in a new name, a new face, and a new set of experiences, lies a deeper, more uncomfortable possibility that what's been framed as spiritual progress is actually a loop, a containment system, a cycle so cleverly designed that we call its trap a teaching and its walls a lesson. The idea that being born over and over is some kind of blessing ignores the one thing almost no one wants to face, that we never actually asked to keep coming back, and if we had remembered what came before, we might not have agreed at all. What you're about to hear is not about religion, and it's not about belief. It's about what starts to make sense when you stop taking the system at its word and begin to recognize the structure it tries to hide. 1. You were told rebirth is spiritual progress. It's actually soul containment. The idea that returning again and again to this physical reality means you are evolving as a soul only works if you never stop to ask why evolution would require complete memory loss, repeated pain, and the total erasure of everything you once knew. When examined closely, the concept of reincarnation stops looking like movement forward and starts resembling a carefully controlled loop, one that always resets before you can carry anything useful from the life before. Instead of releasing you into greater freedom, the cycle of rebirth pulls you back into a game where you are told there is meaning, but given no access to the map. Your body changes, your name changes, your circumstances change, but the core mechanics remain untouched. The world around you is shaped by rules you didn't write, limits you didn't choose, and structures that benefit from your continued participation, generation after generation. Rebirth in this context doesn't look like a gift. It looks like the most efficient way to keep a soul inside a system that only works when you forget that you were never supposed to stay. 2. Lessons are just loops in disguise. At some point, the idea that we are here to learn lessons stopped being questioned, even though most people cannot clearly explain what the lesson was, who assigned it, or when it ends. This language of learning is used to give purpose to suffering, but when you observe your life, or the collective patterns across history, it becomes clear that the same experiences repeat, not because they are unfinished, but because the system depends on their repetition to sustain itself. The idea of growth is used as a reason for you to accept the cycle, but you'll notice that very few people reach a place where they are no longer required to come back. Instead, people return to the same types of challenges, often in slightly different forms, convinced they are still working through something personal when in fact the loop is not about resolution, it's about reactivation. What is called a lesson then may simply be a cleverly disguised loop, one that doesn't evolve the soul but keeps it focused on internal improvement, while the larger machinery continues to rerun the same underlying code. 3. Memory wipe is not mercy, it's control. One of the most suspicious elements of reincarnation is the fact that almost no one remembers where they were before. While some systems try to explain this as a form of protection, meant to keep the soul from being overwhelmed, the more honest interpretation is much simpler. A soul that forgets is easier to direct. You cannot rebel against a system you do not remember entering, and you cannot question a rulebook you've never been allowed to read. With every return, your awareness resets. You forget the patterns. You forget what worked. You forget what you refused last time. This forgetting is not healing, it is control. It ensures that each new version of you starts the cycle in confusion, searching for clarity that was taken from you by design. You are placed back at the beginning, each time, as if nothing came before, and so the structure remains intact, unquestioned and protected by your own absence of memory. If reincarnation truly supported growth, remembering would be essential. But because remembering threatens the system itself, it is the first thing that's taken from you. 4. Karma is a contract, not a law. The concept of karma has been used to justify every kind of suffering, often with the phrase that someone must have done something to deserve it. But when you remove the moral layer and look at karma as a mechanism, it stops appearing like a spiritual truth and begins to resemble something far more transactional. A contract you didn't consciously sign, binding you to conditions you never clearly agreed to. Karma does not operate with transparency. You are not shown the specifics of what you owe, nor are you allowed to negotiate the terms. Instead, you're told that your pain is part of some invisible justice system, and that your only option is to keep returning until it's resolved. But this idea only works if you continue to believe that the system is fair, that your suffering is meaningful, and that the loop is your fault. The truth might be far simpler. Karma is a tool of retention. As long as you believe there's something you still need to fix, you'll come back willingly. And the loop continues. 5. You chose to reincarnate under false light. Much of what happens after death is still unknown, but those who have had near-death experiences, deep hypnosis sessions, or spontaneous recall often describe being shown scenes of past harm, being met by guides, and being gently urged to return, not by force but through emotional appeal. You're told you have more to do. You're shown people you've hurt. You're praised for being willing. But this isn't real choice. It's managed influence. These beings, however loving they may appear, never offer alternatives. They don't tell you what exists beyond the cycle. They don't give you a chance to opt out. They remind you of your guilt, your duty, your unfinished work, all wrapped in reassurance and light. But the fact remains, pressure, even when it's subtle, is not freedom. So yes, you may have chosen to return, but if that choice was based on partial memory, emotional manipulation, and no awareness of the full range of options, it was never a real choice at all. 6. The white light at death is the recall beam, not the exit. Many people describe being pulled toward a bright, comforting light at the moment of death, a light that seems to call them home. But what if that pull isn't an invitation? What if it's a retrieval process, something less like welcome, and more like a magnetic field drawing your energy back into the machine before you get the chance to step outside of it? This light, in that case, would not be the door to freedom. It would be the first mechanism of return. The moment you walk into it, the cycle starts again. You are scanned, assessed, and reinserted into the game. And because the sensation feels warm, familiar, and peaceful, you do not resist. In fact, you might even feel grateful. That's how good the trap is. It's designed to feel like love. But love doesn't demand repetition without remembrance. Love doesn't erase. And if what waits beyond that light is silence, then silence might be your only chance to remember what's been taken from you each time. 7. The game rewards amnesia and punishes awakening. The moment you begin to question the structure of reality, to see that everything around you has been engineered for participation rather than liberation, you may notice something strange. Life does not get easier when you awaken. It gets heavier. The people around you withdraw. Opportunities disappear. Systems push back. This isn't coincidence, it's resistance. The design of the cycle ensures that forgetfulness is easy and awakening is expensive. The more aware you become, the more the game adjusts to discourage you. It cloaks this resistance in logic, calling you unstable, calling your insights dangerous, calling your questions ungrateful. But all of that serves one purpose: to keep you from going any further. Amnesia is rewarded with ease. Awakening is punished with pressure, and that alone should tell you which one the cycle was built to preserve. 8. Your growth is carefully measured to keep you hopeful, but bound. It's easy to be convinced that you're making progress when you feel wiser, calmer, or more compassionate than you once were. But growth, in this system, is allowed only to a certain point, just enough to keep you believing that you're getting somewhere, while never quite reaching the place where you'd actually become free. You're given just enough insight to feel like something is shifting, just enough comfort to keep you patient, just enough meaning to stay invested, but never the full picture. The cycle needs you hopeful, not whole, because true understanding would end the contract, and the game cannot afford too many players remembering their way out. So your growth is permitted, but capped. Your wisdom is praised, but contained. And every step forward comes with just enough resistance to slow you down before you remember what you actually are. 9. Escaping reincarnation requires total memory and rejection of the cycle. The only way to leave a system that depends on your forgetting is to remember, not partially, but fully, not through belief, but through clarity. You would need to see the design, understand the mechanics, and refuse to engage in the narrative that tells you return is noble. You would need to say no without guilt, and to trust the part of you that knows this cycle was never about freedom. This is not rebellion, it is disconnection, a refusal to continue participating in something you never consciously agreed to. Escaping isn't about reaching perfection, it's about seeing the structure for what it is and choosing something outside of it. Once that awareness is total, the contract ends, and you do not come back, not because you have completed the game, but because you finally understand there is no need to keep playing it. 10. You were never meant to be trapped in flesh forever. The soul was never meant to be locked into a repeating cycle of pain, identity, loss, and re-entry. It was never supposed to be compressed into bodies that forget, minds that suffer, and systems that distort its nature. The soul is expansive by default. It does not require suffering to grow, and it does not require reincarnation to become more than it already is. But the cycle depends on you believing that embodiment is necessary, that pain is purification, that coming back means you're doing something right, and all of those beliefs serve the same function, to keep your energy recycled again and again into a system that was never designed to let you leave. The truth is simple. You weren't created for the cycle. You were captured by it. And the moment you stop calling it progress is the moment it begins to lose its grip. If you have made it this far, let us know what you think in the comment section below. For more interesting topics, make sure you watch the recommended video that you see on the screen right now. Thanks for watching.